Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our program today. Now, if you've been listening to our program, what you'll realize, what we do is we take an individual film and we kind of sit down and have a conversation about it. We critique, analyze, and generally just have a really good time with the film that we're discussing, hoping that you will enjoy us talking about this film as well. Whether you've seen the film or not, or, you just wanted to hear us talking about a film that you absolutely love. And in the case of today's movie, there are a lot of people out there who really enjoy this movie. And I'm really excited to talk about this. So to talk about the movie today, I have the amazing TJ Sanson with me today. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love these conversations. I could talk horror movies all night long. So,
well, it's really interesting because today we are talking about The Changeling from 1980, and it is celebrating its 45th anniversary as of now. It is hard to believe this movie is 45
it's crazy.
Years. Yes.
I know. It doesn't seem that way. I saw it for the first time when I was in high school, not in 1980, but, somewhat later than that. When we had our Blockbuster membership, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Blockbuster Video. And I was renting all kinds of things, and I saw that one, and it looked pretty cool. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a damn good movie. I mean, it was so different than what I had been used to seeing, all throughout, the 80s and so forth. Because of the time frame that it was made, it was, just the very end of the 70s, which definitely had its own style and look and feel, the horror movies and suspense movies that were made during that decade. And this movie kind of was more like that, before the slasher movies kind of took off and everything.
Yeah.
So this is more slow burn, suspenseful, little things happening here and there, throughout the story, and unexpected places, and no special effects whatsoever, hardly any. Which is what really kind of, caught my attention about it too. No blood and guts. I don't like that. I'm not a big blood and guts fan. So it was a ghost story, and it involved, the murdered. I won't say too much about it, in case anybody wants to see it, be surprised, about a murdered child in this house that had occurred, some decades earlier. And, George C. Scott by himself, having lost his own family in a car accident. And he was by himself in this humongous 14-bedroom house or whatever it was. And
it was huge.
These little weird things happening there and there that kind of, he was curious about, but they just kind of forgot about, and then went on, and then something else would happen, and then something else, and he just finally couldn't ignore it anymore and went to seek psychic help, which I thought was the most kind of hilarious, out of place thing. And even his expression when he thought, ugh, a psychic, whatever. But it, they cleared up a lot of stuff for it, furthering the story along. Anyway, I love the whole pacing. I love the pacing. I love the lighting. I love that house. I think the house is the star of that movie.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
I think that big, huge, rambling, I don't even know what style. According to the timeline of the story, it would have been built around the turn of the 21st century, around early 1900s or so, or earlier. And so it had this big sprawling, the music room it had, this ginormous basement. It had, the attic room way up there that was where the mystery takes place. I'll leave it there.
What?
The house itself was the fucking star, not George C. Scott. I mean, he was just he was almost as a supporting character in that,
So for me coming into this film, we discussed a little bit about this. I only came to this film through George C. Scott because I'm a huge fan of George C. Scott, and I, for some reason, missed seeing this movie growing up. I did not, and I've seen a lot of 80s movies throughout my time because I grew up in the 80s, and so I saw a lot of the movies in the 80s, but for some reason, this one I missed completely. And I only recently watched it for the first time, maybe 6 years ago, right before COVID. I remember seeing it there. And then I didn't watch it then under a great time. So I didn't really pick up on a lot then, and that's one of the reasons why I've never gone back to watch it again until we decided to do it for the podcast. But you are right. This film, when I rewatched it, and I'm watching it with a critical eye now, so I'm looking for all the nooks and crannies now. I see a lot of great storytelling in this film because it is a very nuanced and strategically paced film that you could only have gotten away with in the early 80s before the slasher movies took over.
Yes.
It's one of those films that's almost feels the same way as you would with watching the original The Exorcist, the way that is paced, or Don't Look Now. It's one of those type of early movies like that I saw while watching this film.
Well, if you've ever seen a movie called Burnt Offerings,
Yes.
that was the early 70s with Oliver Reed, Karen Black, whom I love tremendously, and Betty Davis, of all the matrons that were around at the time. She was just marvelous as the aunt or the grandma or whatever she was. But the same feel,
Yes.
same atmospheric, big sprawling house, lone family. The husband starts losing his marbles, and the wife becomes obsessed with this quote old lady that's supposed to be up in the attic, and you never see her. You only see her going into the room and setting a tray of tea and sandwiches down and
Yeah.
talking to her, supposedly like she's in another room, but she never answers, and it's like, who is this person that you never see? So it kind of has that same suspenseful, like what the hell is going on type of thing, that was going that the Changeling has. And
Yeah.
of course, the story, if you have the DVD that I have, I mean the
Okay.
Blu-ray set has an interview with some of the crew. I think the director Peter Medak, I think he has passed away by now.
Mm.
But they were
Actually.
talking about the story. The director Peter Medak, the writer was named Russell something or other. He actually based that on a story that he read. He based the whole concept of the Changeling, the haunted house and the murder and all that based on
Mm-hmm.
something that he actually read. So if you get hold of that DVD, if you want to purchase it, it's a special edition. It's real nice. It's got like this big poster and a booklet that talks about it. So yeah, it was based on supposedly something that actually happened.
Interesting. So just to get everyone on board with the film, if you've never seen the film, it essentially involves John, who is played by the great George C. Scott, who like we've already mentioned, his family was recently killed in a car wreck, and he decides to move to Seattle to take a new job at post at a school doing lectures for because he's a very very famous composer and stuff like that. And they more or less try and give him this house so he can work in this house. And this old house was more or less kind of graciously kind of given to him by the historical society of the town because they are all in awe of his talent. Now, unbeknownst to him at the time, the house hasn't been lived in for 12 years. But the moment he moves in, he starts experiencing strange phenomenon.
Yes,
And it's very
phenomenon.
subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah, noises he can't explain, like this big loud banging that he can't quite pinpoint where it's coming from, and it lasts for about a minute and then stops.
Yep.
And he's trying to play. What I thought was kind of peculiar is he's playing the piano, working on a composition, and he starts playing this little melodic tune, very soft and very kind of, soothing music. It starts coming, and all of a sudden the door opens behind him, just opens. And then he stops playing, and then he kind of turns around and looks at the door. And you know what is so compelling about this movie that helps it with the eeriness and the suspense is the music score.
Yeah.
The background score, the composer, and they interview him on that disc too.
Oh,
Interview I can't think of his name right now. You can look it up, of course. Whoever
yep.
composed the music box theme which is that little melodic thing that there's a key, that's a clue to the mystery of the show,
Yeah.
the whole thing. But the background score and I don't know what instruments they use. Like it's kind of almost like this little, and it creates the suspense. Music and background scores is another thing, which I think is sorely missing from movies these days. What made this one so, it just kind of makes you want to keep watching, is that music. It just kind of just ugh. And it's like a cat. It likes the hair on your back to stand up, kind of. It's just so creepy. And and more of it occurs throughout the film,
Yes.
and in very key moments. So the composition, the music score was just amazing, wonderful.
And for those of you
Um,
who want to know who that is Rick Wilkins. I'm not really familiar
mm.
with some of his other work, so I have to look him up because you're right. I was not familiar with that composer. I can usually name a lot of the different composers out there, but that one I'm not familiar with, so I have to look him up. So
Yeah, and the music box theme was composed by someone else entirely. That was a completely different composer. Um, it, I think it was Howard Shore, 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 Howard Shore composed that. And they interview him
mm,
about how he came about that particular melody for and he said, because the story is actually very sad. It's about a murder. Okay. And I won't say who, and I won't say by who, and it is about a murder. It's a very sad, he said, it's a sad story. And I thought, I want this music, I wanted to reflect a kind of, nostalgic loss of a time period which would have been decades earlier, early 20th century, and it was a child's, like a lullaby for a child. And he said, I wanted that feel to bring out, that sense of loss and sorrow in someone. Um,
well, I mean, considering that John, the main character, has lost his family, his wife and kid, and then of course he
exactly.
covers this whole murder of another child, and he ends up looking or working to kind of help this child ghost with whatever their last thing is they want to do before they pass on, which is essentially what John does throughout the film. But you're right, it's a very sad story because it's all about children who have passed. Um,
Children who die or were killed,
yeah, yeah,
and not just who pass away. I mean, they die very unfortunate deaths.
yeah,
I
the
mean,
unfortunate deaths. One is a car accident, and the other one is a
a
drowning,
murder,
a murder.
a murder.
But
Yes.
the really cool thing, the really effective thing, are some of the imagery with the childhood and child themes, which is the wheelchair that the child who was killed, Joseph, was killed. The wheelchair is a predominant image, and it's also on the poster. If you've seen the Changeling
Yes.
poster, it's like the main thing on the poster. But not just that, but the little ball, the striped red and white ball
Oh my God. The
from
child's
John's
ball. That
daughter.
was the daughter that was he kept in the that old desk that and he decided one day just to, well, the reason he decided to get rid of it is because it literally, he was just sitting in his study, and then all of a sudden he hears this little boom, 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 and right outside the study door where the stairs
Mhm.
come down, there came that little ball, and then it just kind of stopped right in front of the door. And he just stares at it and then goes over to the desk, opens it up, and it's empty. That's the ball that materialized somewhere and fell down the stairs. Um and
The
then, of course, later, the most famous scene of all, and what that people talk about that creeps him out, is when he takes the ball away and goes and drops it in the river and then comes back home, and all of a sudden it comes bouncing down the stairs again, and it's wet. It's wet, like it had been materialized from the river back to the house somehow.
which is an image that has been used throughout horror films since this movie. That whole imagery with the ball bouncing down the steps and then stopping directly at the bottom has been used in so many ghost stories and horror films. All
And
because
similar things,
yeah.
not just a
And
ball,
yeah,
but
you're
other
right.
other
Similar
things.
things as well. Yes, not just balls. It's a very effective imagery, and it's one of those things where it's very effective and it's very minimal. This movie is all built about minimalism. It's all built around a mystery. Like it doesn't start off as being this mystery that someone has to figure out. If John's character, who just wants to compose the music and get on with the grief of having his, still living with his family being dead 4 months prior, is just wanting to move on, and he gets entangled into this web of trying to figure out what happened to this child. It starts off as as something that might be simple, but once they have the seance, you're right that he goes to the psychiatric research, and they suggest to him a psychic, which he doesn't really believe in at first, but after the experience of that psychic in the house, his whole kind of world opens up a little bit more, and he then feels
Yeah, he
yeah,
starts to accept the
yeah,
possibility more of something beyond,
yeah,
and especially after he's sitting down recording the psychic uh session, if you will,
yeah,
with the ghost or the lady writer who's writing out the answers to whatever the ghost speaks to her through, through her, and she can write out answers to questions. And he goes back and listens to it, the recording that he made on this very sophisticated old-fashioned tape recorder. Um, and listening to it with headphones on, then he actually hears the ghost speaking the answers to the question. Are you the child that was killed by the coal cart? It was one of the questions, and then there was the voice comes up,
a very
and he hears it, and then every answer to the questions that she wrote down, the psychic lady, the medium or whatever,
medium.
he hears in the recording. And then what happens for me, there's a it kind of breaks. Oh, first of all, I'm going to show you something real cool. Check it out. It's the little ball. It came with a DVD that I bought.
Oh Jesus.
It's a bouncy ball.
So for everyone who can't see this, TJ has a changeling ball replica from the movie. I guess it came with the DVD or Blu-ray that she has.
This is the most amazing copy of it. It's worth the money. It's a little pricey, but it's got all that stuff I told you about. It's a booklet.
Yeah.
It's a big poster. First of all, it's awesome artwork on the cover. I know you can't see it, but
Which
this
which
version.
company produced it? What for everyone who's listening?
This company, let's see. It doesn't say on the box, but it says on.
Arrow, Severin.
No. Let me take a quick look here.
Because it is quite amazing.
It's actually 2 discs. There's a okay. Second Sight. It's
Second
called
Sight.
Second Sight. I don't know if you could see this.
Second Sight's a very famous one who puts out really good high-end quality versions of movies.
Yes. It's got the movie plus all those interviews. It also comes with the soundtrack, the music score that I told you about, that I spoke about. This wonderful poster. It folds out, and it's this greenish. I love this greenish tint to it. It's eerie with the house on it and the title. I don't fold the whole thing out, but and then on the back is that famous one with the wheelchair and the ghost image. Yeah. So, and this booklet is amazing. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. Pictures, interviews.
Okay.
What I'm saying, good investment if you're a big fan of this movie, which I am. So
No, we always like to promote high-end quality versions of the movies that we talk about. I know that people like
but
every once in a while when we mention the 4K versions of some of these films to one of our other
yep.
Dave Watkins, who loves to tell us about the details on 4K releases. So it's all good. We don't hear much from Second Sight. Second Sight's another good company out there that produces some really good quality stuff, from what I've been told. But
Yeah.
getting back to the movie, we get to the point where we feel like John is now indebted into this mystery, and he brings along Claire, who is one of the people who helped him get the house to begin with, and is the younger counterpart to the historical society, because the older person at the historical society, Minnie, who we learn is keeping secrets from her and working dubiously with our what is it, Senator, I can't remember the senator's name, Senator Carmichael.
Senator Joseph Carmichael, who you find out bears the same name as the ghost.
Yes.
And I don't know how much spoilers you want to give on this thing, but
doesn't matter.
The ghost Joseph Carmichael is the boy ghost, the child ghost, is the original born Joseph Carmichael for the Carmichael family, who were very, very wealthy, and the philanthropists and all that in that early 1900s, let's say 20th century, in the early 1900s. And you find out that, well, seems like this very young, like 5-year-old child was crippled, disabled. He couldn't walk. He had struck with an illness, and early on, which left him lame. And because of the his father's because of the will of the mother's father, who was the wealthiest, was Spencer, Carmichael, that owned this ranch, and so it all had to do with money and an inheritance, and he would have gotten everything, and the father was bypassed, except as his son's guardian and therefore trustee of the estate. But if something were to happen to the child, dying or whatever, then all of that money would go to charity, and it would cut the father out completely. So that's when he decided to eliminate the risk, and which was Joseph, and adopted an orphan overseas and brought him back to the United States and raised him. And that's who was currently the Senator Carmichael, hence the term changeling, which is when apparently an elf or a fairy replaces a baby with an imposter or a duplicate. And it was a myth explaining why some people were like, a strange child was different than the rest of the family. The explanation for it was, oh, they're a changeling. The fairies took my baby and replaced it with this one. That's what that word comes from.
Yeah, well, in this film, they use it much more overtly, the idea of a changeling, than they did in The Omen. The Omen's essentially the exact same concept, but it's much more downplayed than that one. So if you wanted to watch a story or hear a story that had to deal with an actual, like, the concept of changeling, this one is definitely that one. It's probably one of the best versions of that ideal, actually, that I could think of in the horror film. I can't think of another one that does it as well as this film does. Yeah.
Well, there's several that are contemporary, probably lesser known, that I come across on Tubi and Pluto TV and all that are very, 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 very inferior concepts. They're convinced that their child is replaced by some creature, some unknown, demonic thing, which certainly is not the case with the changeling. It was just an adopted child designed to replace a sickly one that may or may not have lived beyond a certain age, and because Daddy Carmichael wanted lots of money to inherit.
Which also plays into the theme of tragedy where it involves children, because the elder Carmichael has no idea any of this ever happened to him. He does not know he's not the real Joseph. He doesn't.
No, he has no clue.
It's very
He
tragic.
was sort of an innocent bystander in it all, and yet he's kind of looked at as a villain,
Yeah.
which I thought was very weird approach because you know, George C. Scott ends up, confronting him about it and saying, this is what's happened so far and this is what we believe. And okay, now here's where we get to the hokiest part of the movie.
Okay.
Okay, in my opinion, the fact that during that seance or the aftermath, when George C. Scott is listening to the seance and hearing the ghostly voices respond,
Yeah.
all of a sudden he kind of almost blanks out and sees the actual event that happened in the past. He actually sees the murder take place. And of course, because it happened in the past, there's nothing he can do about it except just sit there and watch. And, as soon as it's over and the name is revealed as to who the ghost is, it's like he comes back to, and he's got his own piece of paper with a bunch of, words and things written on it, like the ghost was speaking to him through him. I kind of thought that took it away from where it was going, and it put it into the completely unrealistic. I mean, I accept the concept of spirits and spirit communication,
Okay.
but I don't believe in like the whole idea of like us, seeing a vision of some event that took place in the past, you know, like a weird dream or vision like that. That's what it kind of happened right then. And that was
You
that
think?
kind of made me go, all right.
Well, it's not the first. I mean, it's not the first time. I mean, it's not the only time it happens in the film either. Remember that when after he and Claire have unearthed the body of Joseph in the well, Carmichael sends DeWitt over to his house, and
Yeah, the cop, yeah.
yeah, DeWitt's the cop that he sends over there, Captain DeWitt. And as DeWitt is leaving, he has another vision when the glass shatters and he sees the face of DeWitt. In
Captain
that
DeWitt
glass,
in the car with a blood all over his face.
which is probably one of the blood
And
scenes in the whole movie.
that's the only blood you see in the movie. And then he gets a phone call from Claire saying, I just saw an accident, it's that cop that was just at your house, and the car was flipped over completely in the middle of the road.
Yeah. And
That was another thing that was kind of, how does that figure in,
I the thing is John does not react to having seen that image or that quick flash of the wit in the mirror. I think it's more of a subconscious thing for the audience. I do believe there's certain things in the movie that are designed for the audience's purpose and not necessarily for the characters. Because John, when he is told about the wit, it doesn't seem like he knows or has experienced the seeing him in the mirror, because he was too busy taken by the fact that the ghost Joseph affected the mirror enough to break it and cut him with some of the glass.
yeah, the
Uh,
glass flew out at him. Yeah.
there are certain moments like that where I just believe the tropes of having those little flashes are in there are more for an audience watch than it is for the
Okay.
characters. We see those all the time, especially in slasher movies. It became a freaking running gag, in my opinion, in slasher movies. Um, but they did it in the Exorcist, the version you've never seen, or the director's cut when they kept adding in the Pazuzu's face in the background of shit and no one sees it. It's literally just for the audience's sake. Like the characters don't know it's fucking there. It's like I need to scare the audience for a moment. Put them on edge, and that's what those type of.
And there's another one in Changeling that
Yeah.
does the same thing, and it cracked me up even as a kid because my dad and I sat and watched this movie together. This is what I felt kind of safe watching with my dad because neither one of us are into slasher movies, and I don't like the bloody guts and nudity and all that stuff that just was rampant throughout the 80s. So we watched this one together, and both of us cracked up And this is where I just want to beat my fist against the wall. Claire calls up and tries to talk to John, but he is not at home. And all of a sudden, she gets this impulse to go over to the house. And it's the middle of the night,
Mhm.
and goes up to the house and knocks on the door, and the door just opens. I would have turned around and left right then. I would not have gone a step further when that door opened by itself. And she's calling out, John, John, are you
Yeah,
there? But she keeps hearing his voice in the
yeah.
house, like it's echoing throughout the house, like things that he said. And she's following the voice around. And of course, where does it lead? Up to the very, very top room of the house where the ghost was murdered, the kid. And inside that room is that stupid wheelchair. I'm sorry, I'm getting where I there's certain levels where I just don't want to go in a horror movie, in a mystery
Okay.
ghost story. And it chases her throughout the house, and she runs like, ah! I'm like, oh man, you didn't have to go there.
They need one good scare. This is an unusual movie because what happens is John has his confrontation with the Carmichael, but it's not one of those big, big. It's not a big conflict. It's not like John is just relaying information to Carmichael. So he doesn't matter. He doesn't care what Carmichael does with the information. He just is relaying the information so that he knows exactly the truth, just like he's discovered the truth. That he is.
Well, he embarked on a mission to solve the mystery,
Yeah,
and that's exactly what he did.
yeah, and
And he didn't want money. He says, this isn't blackmail. I don't want your money, you know, because he was about ready to pay him off, and I'm like, he's like, I don't want this. This is not what it's about. you
no,
know
he's
he
about
gives him the
telling the truth.
tapes, he gives him all the information about the seance and everything, then the little medal. And of course, he has a medal of his own, same one, around the neck. It was that gold medal that they
Yeah.
found in the grave. And here we go. And this is another thing that was so weird, is that the senator himself holds up the medal and looks at it, and then he gets a vision of what happens in there. Same thing, the boy in the, getting murdered, drowned in the bathtub by dad, holding him under.
It depends on if you see it as a vision or if you see that his spirit or what have you was transported to the house. And as he walks up the steps, Dorothy Scott's John sees him walking up the steps and he
Yeah,
goes up into the attic as it's burning, mind you, because Joseph is burning it down himself. And then, of course, the truth is revealed to the senator, or yeah, the senator. And he can't live with the truth. And so he ends up having a freaking
a heart attack.
heart
Heart
attack.
attack. He just clutches his chest and keels over.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
a lot that ending has a lot more metaphysical and spiritual stuff thrown in. It's not really in the rest of the movie, but that's a good
mm-mm.
way, in my opinion, to resolve the issues because the film takes very weird, it had different, unusual turns when you don't make John like the focal point of everything. He starts off and then it switches over to Joseph. Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
John
mean,
is
it really
the conduit.
becomes Joseph's story. It's
Yeah,
his story.
it's his story.
Um, and the odd thing about it is that they rented the house out to him, just at random, because Claire, who was the historical
Yeah.
renter, leasing agent, whatever, said, well, they just haven't tried very hard with this house. And she said, well, there's a reason for that, I guess. And because the families had lived there and had left, pretty quickly. I mean, nobody stayed there very long. And she said, I thought of you because of this music room. And that's what I said. That's what made me think of you, because of the piano and everything that was in there. Would be a good place for him to work in music. Um, and yeah, and the rest of it was just, coincidental. It just happened to happen, that history to it. And he had his own tragedy, personal tragedy. And that's when the spirit in the house began to communicate with him and reach out to him, the way it did, because of that tragedy. And my most clever, listen, I think the smartest thing they did was going in and walling up the door that was walled up
Yeah.
in that little corridor that led to the attic. It had been boarded up and shelves built over it and everything, like it just trying to close it off, trying to pretend it didn't happen. Whoever boarded it up, which was probably been boarded up for a very long time.
Yeah.
And yet the energy up there, the frustration, the anger, the rage of decades of being trapped in that, in that limbo of that room, just finally just, poof, it broke the glass in the window and it fell outwards, and that's where it got his attention to go up there and find that room.
Yeah. Well, I think
So
that was the last straw for the or ghost Joseph, because John wasn't paying attention to his other subtle instances, and so breaking the glass, making it explode outwards was like, okay, I'm trying to get your attention.
right.
And he says that. He
So
does say that. He says he feels like something in that house is trying to get his attention. So,
something it says trying desperately to communicate.
mhm.
The water taps and noises, the glass, he said all of it shattered and fell outward. It had to be coming from the inside. And he said everything that's happened has been designed to draw him up to that room.
Mhm.
And it was so cleverly written and acted. I mean, I thought the subtlety of the actors was just, I mean, I hate horror movies that are just so, where people are so stupid, and it's so easy to say, God, I want you just kill these fuckers because they're so stupid, you know? But these two, and what struck me, even at a young age, and now I appreciate more than ever, is that the people who this is happening to are older. George C. Scott was what, in his 50s, even maybe close to 60,
I don't know.
maybe.
Hmm.
He was older, gray hair and, portly and everything. And, Trish Van Devere, I mean, she was Claire and she probably was at least in her 30s.
Hmm.
So, but pure people, not a bunch of stupid kids who are like, hey man, let's just go have wild parties in this old house. It's got a reputation for being haunted. Let's see if we can let's see if we can talk to the ghost. I'm sorry, man. Beyond a certain age, that just don't fly anymore for me personally. And it's like, I don't feel sorry for you when you get killed. I don't. You deserve it.
Oh my God.
I
Um,
know I sound mean. I sound mean. I can't help it. That's where I'm at.
no, that's one of the good things about having different perspectives on the show. You're gonna be someone who doesn't really pay much attention to these teeny bopper slasher flicks who always have these teenagers doing stupid things, or they're having premarital sex, which prompts the serial killer in the mask to come kill them. Those stories don't fly with someone like you. You need something with a little bit more meat and potatoes to the story and the actors involved.
Intelligence is the word. Intelligence, and it has to have, a logical progression in that having a tragedy happen to you. An older man with a wife and young daughter who are tragically killed in a car accident. No one's fault. It was just a thing. And you couldn't blame the driver of the car. They weren't killed. It wasn't some sort of malicious act. It was just an unfortunate accident.
Mhm.
But as soon as he moves, by himself, and you could tell after the kid and the wife died, how it affected him. When he walked around his apartment before he moved, after they were gone, and he was looking around the room, and then he kind of flashed back to when the little girl came up to him and threw that rubber ball at him, the one that bounces down the stairs later, and it bounces, and there it went again. It first in that first apartment. So symbolically, that ball that bounces and he sees it, in his memory. And it's almost like Joseph later on in the house kind of played off on that memory and took the ball and bounced it down the stairs, that it repeated
Yeah.
that event, whatever, if that makes sense. So there's intelligence to this.
Well, there's a lot of care that was taken to the story too. Like you see all the, and this is one of the things why this is such a fondly remembered film by horror critics. You know, this is a film that still is talked to this day because of its influences on later films. But it's a very effective film. It's like when you go back and watch, like I said, Don't Look Now, or you're watching. I'm trying to think of more films like this of that age. But the only one I could think.
Have you seen the Nicole Kidman film called The Others?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same thing. There was an old lady, and she was doing like in a séance, in that house with the two children and Nicole Kidman, and she was sitting around a table, and you see her doing that writing thing and talking to the spirits, and you don't realize until then that Nicole Kidman and the two children are the ghosts,
Hmm.
not the other people that were in there. They were the buyers of the house. They were just trying to live, and then these obviously they were experiencing ghostly things.
Yeah.
And likewise, so that the Nicole Kidman and her kids were also experiencing unexplained things, but they were being done by the real living people that had moved into the house.
Hmm.
So, but you still had that, talking with the seance where she's writing down the answers to their questions, and that came right out of the Changeling. Totally.
Yeah, yeah. And it because I just recently watched this movie. The one of the crazy things is the setup for this movie with the guy who experiences a tragedy and then moves somewhere else to become a teacher and change his life. Uh, Reminds me of the 1981 movie, which I mentioned it because it came out a year after this movie, which is The Hand. The Hand, which came out a year after this, is very similar setup, except and the fact that Michael Caine's character is being driven mad by the fact that he thinks that his severed hand is killing people. It is similar to watching George C. Scott at first trying to figure out what the hell's going on in this house. He's experienced a tragedy himself, but he feels compelled to figure out what happened to Joseph. Claire feels even more compelled to follow after him, because not only does she like him, but she's curious because this is a house that she's been representing for so damn long with some history to it. I think a lot of those aspects make this film a compelling film. Maybe not so much on a rewatch because once you know the mystery, it's kind of like, oh, okay. But it's one of those things that probably should be done more in horror films when you have this type of mystery aspect that drives the character and drives the story forward because you, as the watcher, are really intrigued and you want to follow and you want to know what these characters are learning as they're learning it. You're not being told a bunch of stuff beforehand that the character doesn't know, which I can appreciate from this film.
And so much of now, and I don't know, I can't speak for um like sorry, because now that we have streaming and there's so many different streaming channels
Hmm.
and there's so many more products out there that are just basically cheap copies of things that have been done before.
Yeah.
And I'll look at something in the synopsis and it may look interesting. And okay, how many more themes? Family moves into house. Family discovers some evil presence in there. Something. It just there is a great movie that has that sort of slow burn mystery type thing to it, and it has Ethan Hawke, and it's called Sinister.
Yep.
Um, I think it was made around 2013, 14, some such year, maybe earlier. I can't recall, but Sinister. It was very good. He's Hawk plays a writer who is investigating scenes of murders. He's a mystery writer, crime thriller type books. And, it has a similar type of a vein where you don't quite know what's happening really and what's happening maybe in his imagination. But the whole thing about the Changeling is that you don't ever think for 1 minute that George C. Scott is hallucinating, that he's got mental illness that is making the lines between reality and his thoughts blur. You never get that from him. He's always got a straightforward, but he's just puzzled by some of the things that are happening. Like I said, some of the door opening by itself, the bangings, and he's kind of going like, "What in the hell of the?" But you never once get the idea that he's hallucinating these things, even though Claire, he brings this up to Claire. He says, I'm just wondering if anything like that, has anyone else said anything about this sort of thing in the house? And he says, you've been under a terrible emotional strain. You've been working too hard. And he's like, you think I'm hallucinating? And, it was so matter of fact. Like, you never think for 1 minute from an audience standpoint that he is hallucinating. You know that what's happening around him is happening. You just don't know why. But I'm just saying that so many contemporary horror movies, thriller movies like this, involving, the paranormal or supernatural things, you never quite, it's almost never quite clear throughout some of it, whether or not a person is actually hallucinating things because of psychosis or something, or if they're actually happening.
No,
especially when it involves young women. I just hate that. We're not all crazy, so okay, we're not all on psychiatric meds that are making us hallucinate and shit. We all haven't been abused by our fathers. Come up with something original.
Well, I hate this is this is probably one of the problems with the genre in and of itself. We've created this final girl sequence, and so it is a natural thing to put a female as that type of character. This one, and like you mentioned, Sinister, are the oddities because you have a male character at the center of it.
Yes.
It's not very common. It's not very common.
No.
It's usually a female character. Don't Look Now has both a male and female character at the center of it. Which is why I bring that one. That was such a that film, like this film, are just hallmarks of the genre. And with creepy imagery, and but you're right, this film, you never believe George Scott is 100% sane as anyone else. You never have a second doubt of it. But when you're watching films like Don't Look Now, which is around the same time as this one, a little earlier than this film, or you're watching pretty much any movie nowadays, the female character, you're always, they might be crazy. They may or may not. The only other film I can think of that's a haunted ghost story type of film that may be like this one, closest contemporary, would be Stir of Echoes, with Kevin Bacon.
I love that one. Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. That's the only other one I could think of that, they're very similar, but it's become a cliche in a lot of standard haunted house films. And you know that because you've seen probably just as many, if not more, as me.
Probably so.
And we like to find these films like The Changeling that kind of do a little something different. That are, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to have a character who we know as the audience, he is not crazy from the very beginning. He may be suffering from tragedy in the family, but he's not hallucinating. He's not crazy. That's refreshing. It's not.
It sure as hell is. And it's one of the reasons why I can 5 minutes 10 minutes even into a film that is what I'm talking about, the same young woman moves into house. Young woman has had struggles with past and doesn't know what's going on and can't figure out even what's going on in the house and blah, blah, blah. It's like, and first of all, they're so poorly acted. It's not even funny. It just is. I mean, I don't think acting is important, when it comes to these kind of films, but regardless, it's just a matter of, run screaming through a house. God almighty. I'm sorry. At least George C. Scott has the nads, if you will, to brave it. Now, there are moments when he was kind of Do I want to go in there?
Yeah.
When he goes up the stairs to that attic room, he kind of peeks in the door like, what is going on in there? What's in there? That's the only time where he ever shows any kind of hesitation. The rest of the time, he's just like, what's going on? He wants to, he's being a man about it. What the fuck's going on?
Well, he doesn't. The thing about this film is he never thinks that what's happening to him is harmful to him. Like
No, and it isn't.
there's no reason for him to ever be scared or be or any of that stuff. Once he gets on this track where he believes that he is helping Joseph uncover the truth, there's never a moment where he feels scared, or there's that moment where the audience feels that something will happen to him. It's a very different type of film. That's
Right. And that's why I
typical.
love it so much.
Yeah.
It's why it's one of the best. And even Stephen King lauds this one is one of the best horror films he's ever seen.
Yeah.
Because it is so different. You're not worried about some, crazed killer, who's going to jump out of the shadows and slice your head off. It doesn't happen like that.
Which would have to happen in a contemporary movie because someone has to die every 5-10 minutes. Uh, all the ghosts in contemporary movies are what you call it, jump scares, and they have to kill someone, and they never tell why. They just need to kill people. Yes,
And I'm so over it. Which, I digress from the discussion for a moment to let you know that my screenplay that I wrote is more in the line of the Changeling.
Okay.
And you will when you read it, when you decide to read it, when you do read it, you will see many you'll see how that inspired my screenplay.
Okay.
Of course, my character that I wrote, the lead is a final girl, but she's more like George C. Scott, more like what's the hell's going on rather than I don't do that. My
Uh,
characters do not do that. My character does not do that.
so for everyone who's listening, TJ is also an actress and screenwriter, and I think she's also directed several films because I've helped her with some of her films. That's her background, and surprisingly, that she loves her kind of old school horror films, and that's how we kind of hooked up with doing an homage to the original Nosferatu, which is so funny that we kind of came together with that film of hers that we did on Elise, and then we kind of segue to other types of projects after that. But she is very someone who loves the classics, and that's one of the reasons why it's good to revisit films like this. Because I don't think enough people who are not film critics and horror fans talk about The Changeling enough. I think it is a film that gets talked about in a lot of the higher end circles. And so one of the reasons why I didn't see it for so long, because it was just never on my radar until like I said, 6-7 years ago, right before COVID. It's just sad because I would have really loved this movie had I seen it in the 80s, and everyone knows I rewatched 80s movies 200 times while growing up. But nowadays I don't get the chance to watch films on repeat as often as I should. But from all of us here, that's one of the reasons why we do the show. We want you to go out and take a look at these older films. Maybe you've never seen them, maybe you have heard of them, but we hope that you take a look at them because they are films that should be continually discussed and brought up. So, getting back to the movie, though, is there anything else you would like to tell everyone about the movie?
But for those of you who do love more of a mystery suspense type of film rather than, you know, splatter horror, slice and dice, chainsaw massacre type stuff. If you're not into that, or if you want a taste of something radically different, check it out. I think at one time it was available for free on YouTube. I do not know if it still is. I have, like I said, I have a wonderful collector's edition of the Blu-ray with all the goodies with it because I am undoubtedly a fan and I want all the memorabilia that I can get from it because there really isn't that much. But they have come out. This company has Second Sight has released quite a number of these Blu-rays. I wish you could see it. My copy of it here is sort of a greenish, bluish greenish, and it says even the lines from the movie up there at the top, and the wheelchair in the house, which is a very different art cover artwork than what is normally presented out there. But if you can get yourself hold of a DVD or a Blu-ray, even for cheap online, if you want to do that, great. Amazon, eBay, whatever. Or see if you can find it for free somewhere that somebody has uploaded. It's definitely worth watching once, and it'll definitely change your perspective on the way horror can be produced with the right script and director and talent involved.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and this film is available on Tubi for all of you because I had to rewatch it from that one. Since my copy of this is buried somewhere in my collection, I wasn't going to look for it. I do own it myself, not the great version that she has, but I do own the version of the film. I just didn't want to look for it, so I just watched it on Tubi. It is always good to celebrate the achievements of some of these films, and hopefully, if you've never seen a film with George C. Scott, because unfortunately he passed away a long time ago, and there are a lot of people out there who just don't realize how
Tell
many.
you what, I mean, if you don't know of Patton, about General Patton, which was his Academy Award winning role, that is definitely one George C. Scott. And there's another one, Exorcist 3, which he was magnificent in. No, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point out those two specifically because he was wonderful in those.
He was in the reason why I love George C. Scott is because he was always has such a presence in every film that he does, whether it is a drama, a comedy, a horror film, whatever. He kind of transverse every genre, which is why I've always admired his career. And I think that he was it just so happens that I have still never seen every film that he's ever in. It's one of those things where I kind of get around to him when I think about it, which isn't often enough. But I do hope that after listening to us talk about this film, you do think about him and you seek out this film as well as other films that he has graced us with. And Exorcist 3, thank you for mentioning that one, is another great horror film that you can check out with him in it.
And you know, it only ties in, and I know we're running out of time, but I just want to mention about Exorcist 3, which I hope we can do at some point with the franchise episode you're doing, because you got Exorcist 1, 2, and 3. Exorcist 2 was kind of a joke. I don't think I've ever even seen that one in its entirety, but the first one and the third one, you know, are excellent. And Exorcist 3, I think, is highly underrated. But I'm happy to cover that one for you if you wanna add that one into the mix at some point.
All right. So I want to thank you, TJ, for talking with us today on The Changeling. For everyone listening, what we like to do is we like to rate the movies after we've talked about them. We do a 1 star, 5 star, 1 star being extremely poor, 5 stars being amazing. Where on the spectrum do you put this film?
Me?
Yep, you.
A 10.
It's 1 through 5. You can't do 10.
It's off the charts, baby. It's off the okay, I'll give it a 5. I'll give it a 5. Some of the hokey stuff in there, I would have maybe given it a 4.5, but fuck it. Just give it a 5 because I don't think you could get any better, in my opinion. There's just you can't get any better.
Oh, okay. I've always given this movie a 4.5. Even though I've only seen it twice. The first time I watched it, it did leave an impression with me. And then of course I rewatched it, and having rewatched it with a more critical eye, I think it's much better than this one. This is one of those rare films that doesn't really age at all.
No, it doesn't. It's not dated in any way, except obviously the telephones. It's the corded phones and not your cell phones. Obviously, the cars are a little bit older.
I don't pay attention to cars when I watch movies, to be honest with you. Unless it's like an old-timey Western car, I don't freaking even recognize. Cars are cars.
True. But, you know, as far as like anything about it that's not, it doesn't have anything to do with pop culture. There's nothing in it that particularly screams, oh, late
80,
70s, other than maybe how some of the students dress, and that's it.
yeah, which is another one of those things I don't bother to, unless they dress like they're in a disco era or something. I really don't take much look at the dressing. But that's where I place this film. All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us on Conversations in Horror this week. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode and that you will seek out all of our previous episodes. We've done over 175 episodes, so we hope that you have a joy sifting through all of the horror films out there that we have covered. That being said, make sure to leave us comments on films that you think that you would like us to take apart, discuss, and have a conversation with, because we would love to do the films that you all want us to do. It's one of the things that we do here at the show. Also, make sure to check out our new podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which delves deep into everything Hammer Studios. That show is released every Friday or every other Friday at 8 a.m. And then make sure to jump over to our Patreon page and check out our other podcast, Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. That is a paid and subscriber-based platform, so you do have to be a subscriber or a follower to listen to that podcast, but go ahead and do it. You're going to be glad you did, because you're going to enjoy me talking about comic books and manga and stuff like that. So from everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment and Conversations in Horror, have a great day, and we will see you on the next episode.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Kevin.
Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.